The Last of Us Remake, to nobody's surprise, is being praised by the media, and Sony and Tencent increased their stake in From Software. All right, guys, before we get into this, I have 4 months to hit my goal of 10,000 subscribers. I see a lot of you are new to this channel. If you are, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you enjoy this video. So one of the most controversial game releases in 2022 is going to be The Last of Us Part 1 Remake. If you've played The Last of Us Part 1 before, you know it's an incredible game. One of my favorite games of the PS3, Xbox 360 generation. Absolutely fell in love with the story, absolutely fell in love with Joel. And as we know with The Last of Us Part 1, they released the remaster of the game on the PlayStation 4, which gave it a pretty nice upgrade from the PS3 version. Although the PS3 version was still a very good looking game, especially for a game that released on those older consoles that came out at the very end of the life cycle, but blew a lot of people away. But then we got this announcement at Summer Games Fest this year when Neil Druckmann came on the stage and talked about how they were making The Last of Us Part 1 and that it was going to be releasing in 2022. And here we are now with the reviews for the game, and not unexpected, the reviews are extremely high from the majority of these sites. We have people coming out here and saying that the price is worth it for The Last of Us Part 1. That's the big controversial thing going on right now with this game is this game worth $70? And in my opinion, I firmly believe that it is strictly a cash grab for a couple of reasons. Not just because I want to hate on The Last of Us, not just because I want to hate on Naughty Dog. I think they do great work, but we saw previously Sony come out and tell us what they were going to be doing, which was doubling down on their very popular IPs because it costs less to do, costs less to remake these games, and then they can sell them at full price and make more money off of their consumers. We see what Sony is doing with their PS5, raising the price of it, and just even recently in Australia, releasing a new version of the PS5 that is lighter, meaning that they are using less materials in it, which I'm assuming is costing less to make. So they're making even more profit off of each console, which they already announced they were already making a profit off of in 2021. They are doing all of these things to increase that bottom line. But The Last of Us Part 1 is another one of those things that people are continuously debating whether it is a cash grab. And like I said, I firmly believe it is, for the fact that from what we're seeing so far from a lot of these reviews is that yes, it's a nice upgrade, but it still isn't this huge big difference between the PS3 and the PS4 version to what we have now. There's no real difference in the mission structure. They seem to be the exact same, but the biggest thing of all is they cut out factions. They cut out half the game, and they're charging $10 more than what this game originally released for back on the PS3 and on the PS4. But there is one review here that I do want to highlight. GameSpot, one of the big media sites out there that is actually taking this into account, and they say here, there's an argument to be made that The Last of Us Part 1 is too similar to the PS3 and PS4 versions to be considered a remake, and part of me agrees with that sentiment. The story is identical, the level design is exactly the same, and the gameplay, apart from some quality of life improvements, is unchanged. On paper, if you've played The Last of Us and remember it well, there's little reason to return to it on PlayStation 5. And that's where I think a lot of these reviews, if they don't mention these types of things within their review, to me, they're not very fair reviews of this game. This is the third time that they have released this game. It's getting 9s and 10s across the board, and they are reviewing it like something has changed other than really the graphics themselves and slight gameplay improvements, with it probably just being more snappy and gory and all that type of stuff because things look better. But if you've already experienced Joel, you've already experienced Ellie, you've experienced their tale together, going through the world, all that type of stuff, this is going to be the third time you're going to be able to experience it, and they cut out half of the game. It is not worth $70. But we are going to see here all of these Metacritic reviews with 9s and 10s, which is going to push people to go out and want to pick up this game. And some people may not know that you can literally get pretty much the same experience for much cheaper if you just went ahead and picked up the remastered version. It'll be very interesting to see how this does going forward. Once more reviews coming up, but right now it is sitting at an 89. Finally, here we got another, not acquisition, but investment that is pretty interesting, and that is that Sony and Tencent are going to be increasing their shares into From Software. Sony is now going to own 14.1%, and Tencent is going to own 16.1%. 6.3%. And here's what they say. Through the implementation of the fund procurement, From Software will aim to proactively invest in the development of more powerful game IP for itself to strengthen From Software's development capabilities, and will seek to establish a framework that allows the expansion of the scope of its own publishing and significantly growing global market. In addition to these purposes, for an increase of the number of users in the global market for game IP that From Software creates and develops, From Software decided to conduct a third-party allotment to Sixjoy within the Tencent group, which has strengthened its capabilities to develop and deploy mobile games and other network technologies in the global market, including China, and SIE within the Sony group, which has strengthened its capabilities to deploy IP in games, videos, and various other media in the global market concurrently and separately. So some interesting things there. They mentioned both of them. They mentioned their strength and their capabilities. We know at Tencent, they have already announced that new streaming service, the new streaming technology that they are getting into, which could be something that will be very interesting to see how this rivals something like xCloud, and the fact that they are big in mobile games. So they're going to be able to utilize that. We know the mobile market is something that all of these companies want to capitalize on. Microsoft with getting King and getting Candy Crush. We just saw PlayStation creating that new mobile division, purchasing Savage Games, which is specializing in mobile games, and now From Software here looking to that and seeing how they can bring some of their stuff to the mobile market. And then the additional investment from Sony, a lot of it has to do with their IPs and being able to just get those capabilities of putting From Software stuff within different videos, movies, all that type of stuff, and then spreading them out into the global market. Japan having a huge part of that. I mean, From Software games, huge in Japan, huge everywhere, but the fact that Sony and SIE are so prominent there, that's probably one of the big reasons why this is something that they were happy to see. Probably doesn't mean too much about From Software games not coming onto other platforms. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how that happens. There was Bloodborne with the exclusivity on PlayStation. Hopefully this doesn't mean that they're going to be able to kind of persuade From Software to do all of these deals with Sony, with PlayStation, to keep their next games off of the Xbox platform. But again, you never know, especially now because that relationship continues to grow. That's it for me, guys. Let me know your thoughts on The Last of Us Remake. Do you believe it is a cash grab? And what are your thoughts on Sony increasing their shares in From Software as well as Tencent? Do you think that's going to have any effect on the games going forward, making themselves available on other platforms? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and you liked what you saw, consider hitting that subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video. We'll be right back.